Hello and welcome to the One Shot Show where GMs go to level up. My name is Matt, not there is Mock now, and today we're talking about character voices.
Yes, we are. I wasn't expecting that, but I'm fully on board.
That's it. That's the end of the bit. I'm not going to try to keep that up for the whole thing.
Coward.
I could do the whole thing now if you wanted.
I think it's only appropriate. I think we're in this deep now. In for a penny, in for a pound.
This is just going to be the Banshees of Inisherin. That's what that is.
I want Brendan Gleeson then.
We're talking about character voices, right? And I mean, look, yeah, sure, we've started off with an accent bit there, but what I'm actually really interested in talking about is how to do character voices without doing accents, because I think that's often the advice that people are after. People who know how to do different accents kind of don't need advice on how to do voices. They just ream through their repertoire of accents like I imagine you or I probably do at our tables and in other places in life. Not saying which. But doing character voices without accents, if you're not great at doing accents, there is a little bit of an art to it, but there is actually a lot that I think people can do.
Dare I say that actually the vast majority of the population, including those who play games, would not be confident at doing any accent at all.
So let's put yourself, if you will, imagine you are unable to do any voice other than your own.
I have been putting on a New Zealand accent this whole time. That Irish accent, that was my natural voice. The mask just slipped.
You're that good. But like, how would you approach making two NPCs distinctly different with just your own voice?
Here's a top tip. Is that if you are starting out as a DM, or even if you're a very experienced one, you're simply not confident with using your voice, and you're put into that situation, which DMs often are, where it's an NPC conversation, and there are 4 or 5 of your friends sitting around the table watching you talk to yourself. You don't have to. You can simply narrate it and say, this person talks, and then speak, the other person talks, and then speak, and then just pray for a reprieve from your players.
Yeah, you can totally, you can sort of change how the scene is being presented, where it gets to the bit where, you know, the archaeologist that they've been traveling with is introducing you to some high-up members of the prospecting guild, and you go, the archaeologist speaks with the dean of the guild for a couple of minutes, you know, covering over some formalities and updating him where you've been. And then he says, I'd like you to meet blah, 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 blah. And like, that's it. You don't have to do the whole thing.
Yes, what you just did right there is you said the archaeologist talks for a couple of minutes and they organize some things. You don't need to perform an entire conversation. Your players won't expect you to be like an actor or do a whole production by yourself. If you're in the situation where a group of NPCs need to get across some important information, you don't need to perform that. You can say, these people are going to talk, and over the course of several minutes, you learn about the ancient artifact that you're going to find, you find out where it is, and you're going to hear about this particular legend of a guardian beast you might have to deal with.
Exactly. So now let's run that scene a little bit further on. We're up to the point now where it's mostly the players talking to the dean of the prospecting guild. The dean is going to be talking to them back, right? Now that probably is going to be role played out. And then, you know, one of the characters goes, hold on, there's a question that I would like to ask the archaeologist guy who's still traveling with us. Let me go ask him a question. Then you have to role play that back. So we're still in a scene where there's 2 NPCs. How do you go about making those 2 NPCs feel and sound different to one another without, you know, this one sounds Irish and this one sounds Scottish? How do you approach that?
There are some very simple tricks that you can do with your voice, particularly with your voice. And what I would recommend to anybody who wants to be able to do this is just practice when you're by yourself. If I'm like riding my motorbike to work, no one can hear me talking to myself underneath my helmet. Or if I'm sitting in the car with the windows up, they're not going to think that I'm completely insane.
They're actually just going to think you're on a hands-free phone call.
Yeah. And there are some kind of default things that I can personally do that I try myself to be able to slip into. Particularly whenever I'm doing a goblin, I will immediately push it straight up the nose.
Yep.
Or if I'm doing an old man, there's no accent here. I'm just closing up my throat a little bit.
Exactly. I think you've hit upon something that's fantastic, which is the things that you can do with your voice that have nothing to do with accents. There's a particular one that I used to espouse this wisdom all the time back when I worked in broadcasting. I worked in commentating, and a big part of my job was ramping up the energy level and intensity as the action in the game also intensified, right? I had to match that. And the way I kind of envisioned that is your voice just has a number of sliders, right? That go from low energy to high energy. Now, this worked in the context of broadcasting, but there's still a lot of wisdom here that I think helps for character voices, right? I could go slow to fast. I could go quiet to loud. I could go low pitch to high pitch. I could go smooth to roughed. So, the start of a sequence in the game that I was commentating on, I might pick it up by saying, and now they're coming around the corner to do this thing. And by the end of it, I'm going, and look at that! They've done it! They've done it! Right? And I've slowly ramped up over the course of the seconds where I've been talking. But my point is there was a lot of dynamic difference in my voice that had nothing to do with accent. So if you got two NPCs, maybe one of them has a deep voice and talks very slowly, and the other one has a gravelly voice that's a bit more high-pitched and talks faster.
And we need to, if we're talking about gravelly voices and deep voices, there's a couple of really important voice things you need to know. And first of all, it's look after your throat. If you are doing this ancient eldritch entity, the first instinct you might have...
If you are interacting with the beast, you don't want to really damage your voice too much, and this is quite hard to keep up. I can only do this for a few sentences at a time. Yeah, exactly. I'm exactly the same way.
But something that you can do if you do have a character like that is play it against type. I recently had my players meet an ancient dragon, and immediately the dragon turns to them and says, "Why, hello, welcome to my lair. Lovely to have you here. Look at my hoard." And they loved it. It was like a boisterous, very friendly, and often having such a large or ancient creature that would typically
be trying to be scary.
If they speak in a whisper or they're very measured because they're so calm, that can be terrifying to your players in totally different ways.
Yeah.
And if you want to lower the pitch of your voice, don't do anything to your throat. Top tip for that is if you restrict the muscles in your core, then it will automatically drop your voice at all without changing anything about your throat.
Yep. There's a whole lot of funny tricks that I've also picked up over the years of like tricking jogging my brain into certain accents and certain voices. There was a vocal warm-up that we used to do, and you'd go, "I told my daughter not to give the dog coffee." But you know what she did? She gave the dog coffee. She's now got a dead dog, a dumb daughter, and no coffee. Now, by the end of that warm-up, I'm ready to go. Put me in a ring, right? I'm right on the mark. And there's all sorts of funny ones. If you give yourself an underbite, often it forces you to widen the vowel sounds in your mouth, and it can make you sound like Natalie Portman. Quite a refined, quite a posh. It's because your jaw is so restricted.
Do you mean Keira Knightley?
I can't tell the difference. Name one person who can. Name anyone who can tell the difference.
Those physical things you do with your mouth, like giving yourself a lisp, very easy, no accent needed. Or making yourself very breathy, also very easy.
Yep. I'll also say there's a really interesting one that we haven't quite touched on here, which is word choice. One character might speak very little. They might choose their words very carefully. They might take quite long pauses between their sentences. Another one, they might be like a real gruff working class dock worker, and they're effing and jeffing all over the place, right? Yeah. Like, if you've ever been on a work site, it's bloody this and bloody that and fuck shit, fuck, right? It's every other word might be a swear word, right? So things like that really help if they're quite an educated character. They're probably going to speak quite directly and quite specifically with their word choice, and that's probably also going to reflect in how they sound, because if you're saying if you're saying very specific words with very exacting meanings, you're often saying half as many words as somebody who isn't saying very specific words.
That's a extremely good top tip for if you're not doing accents, if you are not changing your voice at all, is giving them a character thing that comes across in their voice, such as speed, such as an intonation, or something that I've found very useful, exactly giving your characters a catchphrase.
Your ass is brass and I'm going to buff it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent callback. Or a villain that I had who was an extremely cringy warlock. And what he would do every time he cast a spell is he would name the spell and then cast it like he was an anime lead character.
Lightning bolts!
That is the exact vibe. His name was Dante Darkfire.
Oh, yeah.
It was, he's great. But yeah, catchphrases. I had a goblin merchant who ran a store called Rats, Rats, Rats. All you need is rats.
That's a Ben and Jerry's flavor.
And his catchphrase is all you need is rats. And every party I've had that's encountered that guy, they love him. He's got a little ratskin top hat, ratskin vest. All you need is rats. And that's sometimes, the speed, the catchphrase, the intonation, or the character, or a really useful thing to do, and I think we may have mentioned this before, is simply doing a celebrity impression.
Yep.
Really reduces the mental load. When you're talking about modulating your volume, your intonation, how fast you're talking, all of that is a bunch of different puzzle pieces put together into a string that you've built yourself. But if you're imitating a celebrity, it's all done for you.
Yeah, idiolect is an idiolect as opposed to a dialect or an accent is a specific person's voice. And usually when we're talking about idiolects, we're talking about, as you say, celebrities or historical figures with extremely distinctive speaking patterns that might be quite easy to evoke. I use the example. I've used the example of Christopher Walken. You move around the object, but here's the funny thing about Christopher Walken's voice: it's so distinctive that you don't even have to be doing his accent. I could just say it's so distinctive, and I already sound a bit like him. And people don't think I'm necessarily doing an impression if I do it that way. There's I don't know, Michael Caine. And if you say it correctly, his own name sounds like he's saying my cocaine. Hello, it's me, Michael Caine.
Another really, really easy one to do is Sean Connery with the extremely distinctive shush.
I've had enough of this.
Exactly. And again, there's basically no accent there. You're just mangling the occasional word, and that's a really easy person that everybody is like kind of very aware of to be able to do.
What's your best one? What's your best impression?
My best one. My best impression is of a well-adjusted, stable man in his 30s.
Oh,
I've got that one on all the time.
Yeah, I'd say mine is Mickey Mouse.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Do you want to have a Mickey off?
Absolutely not.
You don't?
No.
Well, this is what I break out whenever there's a really annoying child.
Oh boy.
I bring this out anytime there's a flump in my D&D games.
Nice. That's
they're
a
all
classic.
innocent, and you can trust them, and they're lively. And the party will kill them 100% of the time. They will absolutely murder that.
Oh, what are you doing to me? Oh, my insides. They're outside.
You're monsters.
Excuse me. A final thing I think I want to touch on.
Are there comments on Spotify? Can we have people jump in and vote for the best Mickey?
Yeah. Cast your votes now. There's one final thing that I do want to touch on here because we've spent this whole time basically talking about not doing accents.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go, oh, well, I can't do accents. I'm not very good at accents. To which I will say the voice is a muscle. It can, in fact, be trained if you would like to, right? If you don't run and you would like to run a half marathon, if you start training and you follow a regimen, you're probably going to be able to run a half marathon, in a couple of months or years, right? In theory, anyone can actually do it. Some people are a little bit more naturally inclined to it. Some people have, a higher baseline of fitness, for example. I have a bit of a mimic's ear. I find it quite easy to do accents. But you can train the ear and you can train the muscles of your voice. Again, this comes from my time in broadcasting. After every single broadcast, I would sit down and I would listen to my own broadcast back because I needed to review what I was doing and, try and improve my craft. But it meant I got really good at listening to the sound of my own voice. You know how when people hear recordings of themselves and they cringe and they're like, oh, what do you mean I sound like that? Right?
Can't relate.
But, well, exactly. I can't relate to that anymore because I'm at the point now where I've heard my own voice so much, and I love it. But it also means that when I talk, like I'm talking now, I'm hearing myself pretty much as I sound, which means my ear is quite well trained, which means if I hear you doing an accent, I'll probably be able to start picking up how that sounds in an accurate way. And if I'm trying to recreate it, I'm hearing myself accurately. So I can hear if what you're saying and what I'm saying sounds similar enough that my accent is passable. And then the voice, that's the other side of things that can be trained. I did that vocal warm-up earlier. I told my daughter not to give the dog coffee. I guarantee you anyone listening to this could say that sentence and by the end of it sound a little bit like a New Yorker, right? You can just train your mouth and tongue and throat to shape itself differently to make those sounds. You can start with simple ones like the French R as a her. instead of a R. If you can figure that out, you're halfway to being French.
Great. Speaking of the French accent and accents in general, is that that is some excellent advice. And that, yes, practice does make you better at things. But everyone has to start somewhere. And you don't have to be good at accents to break one out at a table
Yeah, go
surrounded
for
by
it.
friends. Do a terrible accent. You're going to make all of your friends laugh, and they're going to remember that character. If, for example, if they meet all of my bullywugs in my D&D games, they're all frogs, they're all French. Undeniably, and the first time that I did this, it was terrible. And just to this day, it is still one of the worst French accents you
not
will
up there.
ever hear.
No.
But that's not the point. Bringing out a terrible French accent, accuracy
Yeah.
isn't the point. Entertainment is.
And as it happens, France doesn't exist in my setting. Like, you
What are you
can't
talking
say...
about a French accent?
Yeah, you can't say that's not a good enough French accent. And I'm like, well, there's no French people in the setting.
What is France?
This is just a kind of accent of how a kind of person sounds.
This
Like,
just in, France does not exist.
can we get like flashing bars across the bottom? Breaking news. And I guess the final thing I want to put on here is let's wrap this all up into a single package now of skills, which is, let's say you start nailing your accents. You best make sure that you don't sit there and decide, right, every single gnome in my campaign is going to be Dutch, and then sit down having mastered your Dutch accent and realize you can only do one Dutch accent, and you've got dozens of gnome characters that you need to do. And that's where all those other things come in. Maybe this one has a low voice. Maybe this one has a high voice. Maybe this one sounds really old. Maybe this one is quite high-pitched. Maybe this one swears a lot. Maybe this one uses big words. There's all sorts of other tricks you can do so that you aren't just showing up to the table and, like, every single dwarf is the same Scottish accent.
Unless you want to make that the running joke.
Unless that's the whole thing.
Look,
yeah,
it's your world. Do what you want.
Yeah, and I have done the every single gnome is the same kind of Dutch thing before. But that has been us for this episode of the One Shot Show. I hope you found something useful there, and we'll see you guys in the next one. If you like what you just heard, feel free to support us on Patreon. Every little bit helps. Go to patreon.com/OneShotShow.